Hey guys, so in light of everything that's been going on with Wall Street bets, I really want to talk about something that kind of has come up from this. So this whole situation has been framed as retail investors, small retail investors with smaller amounts of money, rising up to combat hedge funds with a ton of money, right? And the idea that these retail investors are able to make waves and push these guys out and take advantage of their stupidity and risky behavior. And it reminds me a lot of the idea of voting with your dollar. And that's because I think that one of the things that has been talked about is how obviously if there's this access online and there's all these people buying all of these shares, that it's probably not all retail investors. There's probably some whales that are also getting in on this action. And specifically, there's going to be people that are day traders, people that are, quantitative investors and momentum algorithms that are all institutional investors that are taking advantage of this too. And I want to be very clear, good for them. I don't care that they're taking money from a hedge fund. Good for them, whatever. But I want us to understand that the amount of money that has been going into these stocks is not just coming from retail investors. Definitely check out Plain Bagel's video on this. He did an amazing job pointing this out and breaking down the numbers. So he's done enough work there. I'll let him cover that for you. But let's just understand this isn't the small guy versus them. There's plenty of whales involved on both sides of this. And, that's Wall Street. There's always an Ackman and an Icon. There's always someone on each side who's, working to screw the other. But that brings me to the idea of voting with your dollar, because each of these individual people have far less money than these hedge funds and are effectively trying to vote with their dollar by investing in GameStop in a more complicated fashion because of the short interest, obviously. But you understand what I mean. So this is something that you've probably heard, especially if you're based in America. You've definitely heard someone say, whatever, you don't like Starbucks. Okay, well, vote with your dollar and go spend money, especially during the pandemic. It's been, vote with your dollar, go support small businesses, and don't spend money on Amazon or Walmart or these multinational corporations that, often are what's available for people more easily, and also often offer products and services at lower prices. And I really want to talk to people about this, because the basis of this argument, right, is that a free market that is dictated by supply and demand, i.e., what I want, what is available, and the price fluctuates based on those things, those factors. That's the predicate. That's the idea here, right? But we got to and it's also the way that people use, it's the idea that people use to boycott a product, a company, a service, to short a stock. But this is kind of BS, because the problem is that I don't have the same amount of votes, right? You don't have the same amount of votes as me in all likelihood. And whether that's higher or lower is not really relevant. But the point is, because what really matters is that if people are supposed to decide what products are good, what products are bad, what's worth spending money on, and therefore the products that get the most money are the ones that have the most value and therefore are promoted within society, we have to recognize that that kind of means that the only way this is a truly equitable system is that if everyone has the same thing, which is dystopian and not something that I think is, good, just to be clear. But that's kind of the ideal. That's the base of this idealistic view of the world, right? So let's stop and think about this. If you're someone who's like, whoa, hold up, free market's good, guy. Don't be talking smack. I want you to understand. Well, now I have COVID. I want you to understand that stop and think about the history of the U.S., right? And if you're familiar with the 3/5 compromise, right? So back in time, right, when the nation first started, we believed that all men are created equal, right? And at the time, white men were able to vote. And yeah, black men were only able to, they were worth 3/5 of a person when it came to, decisions and representation within those states. And then if they were slaves, they didn't even get access to voting. But the point here is that we all recognize was wrong, right? We all recognize that is contradictory to the idea that all men are created equal, right? If we say all men are created equal, but some are only worth 3/5 of a man, those two things cannot be true at the same time. Therefore, they are contradictory. Now, let's take that and let's apply that same principle to a market. So right now, the median household income, I want to be very specific, not individual income. The median household income in the United States is $97,000, right? A net worth, not an income. And as an example, just to use a specific individual, Jeff Bezos is worth about $182 billion. So let's understand real quick that effectively means that if we actually believe that voting with our dollar is a legitimate form of recourse within a economic or political system, that Jeff Bezos, right, relatively speaking, has so you have the average household has 1.88 millionth of a vote relative to Jeff Bezos's, right? So essentially what that means is that for every one vote that you can do, Jeff Bezos can issue 1.88 million of them. I don't know about you, but that sounds like Jeff Bezos is deciding what type of toilet paper gets sold in stores. Not me. I have really nothing to say about that because I have an infinitesimal amount of a vote, relatively speaking, if we are agreeing that the idea of voting with your dollar is a legitimate statement. It's not, right? That's kind of the takeaway here. And now I want to say that before you then, I understand people will say, well, Jeff Bezos works for that money, right? Therefore, okay, cool. Well, first of all, that doesn't matter. That has nothing to do with the conversation that we're having. The question is whether or not the voting for your dollar is relevant, but I will humor you, okay? And let me point out this. I want to be very specific and point out that Jeff Bezos, he already had almost 3 times that household net worth and worked on Wall Street before ever starting Amazon. So it's not all work, my dude. It's nowhere close to being comparative, right? And now, good for him. This does not, I want to also stress that this is not a moralistic argument. This is not an argument of me saying that rich people are evil, or it means, nothing like that. I'm saying that a person who has more votes within a capitalist market-driven system. Therefore, voting with your dollar is only an option for people that already have more dollars, i.e. more votes. Therefore, it is not an equitable way of divvying out products or services. Now, my takeaway with this is that there is no reason to believe that voting with your dollar is a thing, and we should absolutely push back on this when people say it, because it's not true. And I think that it's really important to understand this, because when we have things like political lobbies, right, that means that people that have more, if there are not very strict, restrictions on how much money they're able to spend on specific political activism, specific political groups, that they are effectively able to, have control of what our government does, which is what is happening in the United States and has been happening since pretty much the beginning of the United States. The U.S., the founding fathers knew this when they started everything. Okay, there's a reason that only people that own property were allowed to vote. Just so we're clear. There is no rosy, there was one time where everything was amazing and we need to go back. No, not the case. Now, and this has been shown even more so with this whole situation with Wall Street Bets, because you saw hedge funds, you saw brokers that have more and had more at stake step in and prevent the free market from working because it was against their capital interest to do so. Therefore, again, their dollars, their votes outnumbered yours. That is a problem, and that is something we all need to understand. And that's why we need to, instead of worrying about trying to vote with our dollars, right, and stop buying, lattes, because lattes are delicious, all right? Let's be honest. Instead, what we need to do is focus on pushing for political activism and focusing on what will solve this systemic problem. And that's why I want to leave you with one question, which is, why should we have a system that rewards people who have more for having more? If you enjoyed this clip, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and check out the full live version of the Wealth for 99 podcast, where we talk finance, economics, and public policy from a working class perspective. We'll see you there.